can you fight on multiple fronts? I mean, the fact that you mentioned all the fronts where you're already fighting, Hezbollah in the north, Hamas in the south, the Houthi rebels, they've been firing rockets at you, IRG, American forces have been targeted both in Syria and Iraq. So is this war going to expand and not remain restricted just to your war on Hamas?
We are not going to expand the war. We already have a war with Iran by proxy. Hamas and Hezbollah. Hezbollah is in war with Israel, low intensity for the time being. They are shooting in the border every day, trying to bring down, to kill soldiers, civilian population every day. We are not trying to bring it to high intensity full war. We hope not to. We send messages. If we will need, we will find on two fronts. Look, Israel has no alternative. It's the question of survivability. If we are not the strong actor who can protect himself in the region, we will be in deep trouble. But this is not only our war. Think of it that if the jihadists now, the ISIS-like organizations, they feel that Hamas has won, and for the time being the picture of victory is in the hands of Hamas after the massacre of October 7, in their eyes, in their sick eyes, I should say. If we don't reverse the picture into strong defeat of Hamas, it can fuel extreme elements that are still there of ISIS, of Islamic State, that were weakened by Americans and other forces that are dispersed, but the ideas are still there. And we can see them fueling in the in West Asia, in Europe, in South Asia. There are still elements that are ISIS-oriented. This is the fear. I mean, it's much bigger than just the war against Hamas. It's the message, and that's why the Americans this time, I think, understood that very early and sent their fleet in order to threaten any forces, Iran, Hezbollah mainly, from enlarging the scope of the war here. And I think this is very important. It's a bigger war than just Israel-Hamas.
But the problems, you say that Hamas leadership should keep looking over their shoulder. Their days are numbered. What's actually happening on ground is that, people of Jewish origin, they are in the line of fire. You saw what happened at Dagestan. How do you look at that? How do you look at what's happening in American universities? But I'll come to American universities in just a moment. Do tell me, how do you look at the attack that took place at that international airport in Dagestan?
I think that it's the responsibility of every country to take care of other visiting tourists or its own Jewish population. And the Russians have to do it there, and the Americans have to do it in their own places. Each one has to take care of it. Anti-Semitism is not a new disease in the world. They're just looking for times to erupt. It's there. It was always there. It will come back. It's back already. We have to accept it. We have to fight it. We have to understand it, not accept it, but understand it and fight it. And that's what we have to do, and different countries around the world have to do. It's unacceptable that in democratic Western societies, the freedom of speech enables you to have hate speech against others. This is unacceptable, and I think that people understand that, and you see a very tough approach in the UK, of people saying they will arrest in France, in the United States. I think that this is very, very important. It's not our problem. It's partly our problem. It's their problem. If you allow extremism and hatred in your society, it will come to bite you back. It already bites your own citizens of Jewish origin, but it will come to bite you back because the hatred, once you let it grow up, it's not controlled anymore.
The narrative war, you mentioned about the hospital. They mentioned 500 dead and Israel targeted the hospital and the world, at least a section of it, went with it. Are they winning that narrative war against you? Is that what is happening?
Yeah, well, we are one Jewish country in the world. All in all, we are less than 10 million people. In the world, there are less than 15 million Jews in the world. How many Muslim countries, how many Muslims around the world, and how many supporters they have? So what happened here, the narrative is decided much before. The narrative was there. People were shocked on what happened on October 7th. So anyone who was half decent took out strong condemnations without but and if. So condemning what happened on October 7th, because this cannot be, such atrocities and such behavior cannot be justified or put in context. I also said on Twitter and other places, those who were not decent enough to come and condemn October 7th cannot come now and speak about atrocities or suffering on the other side. The suffering today in Gaza that we have to be concerned about are 230 almost Israelis kidnapped there, children from 9 months old to people in their 80s. This is the suffering that people should care about. And this, what happened in the world, that all those who hate Israel to start with or have an agenda, they just wanted, in the hospital, they tried to turn the hospital into that point. Eventually it was understood that it was a lie of Hamas, but it doesn't matter. They were just looking for the excuse to explain why they dislike Israel. So after October 7, it was a little bit not politically correct, convenient, after these horrendous pictures, to come and hate Israel. But now it's legitimate because Israel is doing the same, trying to equate. This is part of this approach, terrible approach. But we know that it's always like that. The only tool that they have to protect the terrorists is under the people, or accumulating bodies above them of civilians, claiming civilians, in order to put international pressure on Israel to stop. They don't want to fight us. They want to sting us, and this was a terrible sting, and run back to their holes. We will not let them this time. In the past, maybe it worked. In the past, we looked for finding a solution, a ceasefire, to weaken them and then ceasefire. No, now we are going to eliminate their capacity as much as we can, and it's not going to be the same. It's not the same event.
Am I to understand, Ambassador, in case the hostages were returned, the bombing would stop? Or will Israel continue to decimate Hamas, and your war on terror continues till Hamas is no longer an entity to govern or remain in Gaza and that area is demilitarized?
There are two separate issues. The hostages, it's a violation of every law, human law and international law. They should be brought back regardless of anything else. This is an issue by itself. Finishing Hamas' ability to reenact such actions is a separate thing. So I don't see them as connected. We need the hostages back yesterday, not today, yesterday. They are already more than 3 weeks there. People are sick, medications they need, babies who need food and feeding. This has to stop now. Our need for the world, not only for Israel, to make sure that the jihadists in the world, they don't win. They don't have the feeling that there is now a resurgence of the power, of their energy, of the motivation. That's what we have to do. It's a bigger war, and if people don't understand that we are fighting in a way a much bigger war, they are missing a big part of the picture.
So you already see this as a world war against terror?
No, it's not a world war against terror. You can see the division in the world. You referred to that before. There is a clear division in the world now. That the democratic countries are supporting Israel. They understand the need. Some other countries are less. You can see that in our region, the two countries are leading are Turkey and Qatar. And you can see that the Iranians, of course, are, as I said, at the head. And China, both China and Russia are more supportive of the other side. Unfortunately, they did not go in a strong condemnation of October 7th. And this is a real pity. It's not about a world war. Now it's a war against extremism. We are fighting Hamas now. We have to win this battle. I don't think that other countries will join. No one has appetite. There are too many wars in the world today. This is a war that we will fight with our own power. But we need the legitimacy of the world to do this war and to finish Hamas. That's the bottom line.
To finish Hamas remains the bottom line.